All right, and we're live. It's the Pay Me No Mind Sports and Entertainment Show. This your host, Wood. Once again, I'm on here with my man, Rockmine from FightHype.com.
All right, and we're live. It's the Pay Me No Mind
I always mess that up.
Show. This your host, Wood. Once again, I'm on here with my man, Rockmine from FightHype.com.
We got something redundant between us. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So what's good, man?
Nothing much. Just ready to talk about some boxing. It's a new year, baby. These promotional companies are putting out, all these great fights. PFC just put out. We just had a huge press conference in Manhattan where they put out a lot of different fights that they were going to have the first half of this year up until June. So I'm just on here ready to talk about it, bro.
All right, so that's what we'll get into is the exciting list of Showtime Boxing and PBC cards that, as like you just mentioned. I didn't know you were going back up to the city for that. But let's jump back to last week real quick. Open up with just some general thoughts on last week's Errol Spence Jr. and Lamont Peterson card. Let's start with the main event. What was your takeaway from that, man?
Well, first of all, about the press conference, I didn't know either. I didn't find out until Monday around noonish that they were even having a press conference, and I jumped right on it. But getting to that Spence Peterson fight, it was a great card. It went similar to what we both said it would do. Peterson didn't really show anything new, any new folds. However, he did show that he had a heart of a champion. He did not want to be stopped or quit or anything. He didn't stop. His coach and Coach Barry Hunter ended up stopping him to make an attempt to save him from himself, because I don't believe that he would ever stop. I think it was a great card. It was another display of Errol Spence's talent and how strong he is. And once again, he knocks out one of the opponents of the top people in the welterweight division. Not saying that he's not one of the top guys, but Danny Garcia, fought the same guy and he knocked him out. Danny Garcia went the distance, and some people say that he even lost that fight. So, I mean, once again, Spence comes through and he shows us what he's capable of doing.
Were you shocked that Peterson? I think I mentioned it last week or the week before it was last week when we did the show. But were you shocked that Peterson elected to stand in front of him and not move as much, and just kind of relied on body lean, parrying shots, and just trying to be responsible defensively? Did that kind of shock you?
It didn't really shock me because that's pretty much Peterson's game. It would have shocked me if he, did more moving around in boxing. It shocked me to see how tough he was. I mean, he took a lot of punishment and he only went down once. And even when he did go down, his butt, I don't know if you caught it, but his butt didn't even touch the canvas.
Right,
so,
right.
I think that he's a person that likes to throw a lot of hooks. I think he's a fighter that has to be set before he throws a punch. I don't see a lot of really hard punches being thrown on a movement. So, I mean, that's exactly what I expected. That's exactly – it wasn't really the same fight as the fight where he fought Danny Garcia, but it was similar to, what I thought he would do.
I don't know. It seemed like I was kind of confused. Of course, I couldn't hear it the night that we were in the building, right. But coming home and catching the replay to hear that Barry Hunter's expectation or request was for him to box more and move more. And Pete was like, nah, I'm doing what I'm doing. And then as it got into the 6th and 7th round, it was like Barry Hunter kept reminding him that, he didn't really approve of how he chose to approach the fight. And I know some people were talking about, this is what headbangers does. This is their expectation. But like I said, it seemed like Barry Hunter thought that he should have boxed a little bit more. And then before you go in, I felt like opting to stand, stay in the distance or the range that he stayed in, it made him keep his hands home so much, and he got quadrupled or whatever on punch output.
I think you're right. I mean, there were times where Barry Hunter told him that he needs to move around, and I think he even responded to Barry Hunter like, man, look, I'm losing every round. I'm just going to go for broke. I'm just going to do it. I don't think he had a choice either way. I think it was going to end up the same. If he had all the leg movement in the world, I think Spence would have cut off that ring and got to him and basically did the same thing. I just think he was the smaller guy. I think Spence is a bigger guy. He's really a smaller guy moving up to that division. And he's I don't want to say he's late in his career. I definitely don't want to say he's, at the tail end. But I just think that Spence is the truth right now, and I don't think whatever he would have done in there, I don't think it would have worked for him that night. And I knew that going into the fight.
Right, I felt like he could have maybe extended the fight to the 10th or the 11th, maybe even 12th. But I do think, it was probably inevitable. One thing I want to say that I really appreciated, and we can move on to the Easter and Fortuna fight. But in watching it the second time, man, I really liked the fact that even though these guys had this bond of sparring and the, immense amount of respect for one another, I really appreciated the fight. I mean, the fact that when Spence got the warning from Doc about the low blow, that when he came in, that he didn't bother touching gloves with Pete to really – sometimes I watch these fights, man, and some of the sportsmanship and the tapping gloves at the end of a round and stuff, I don't like that stuff sometimes. So I thought that was like – that just signaled to me that Spence really gets in a savage mode when it's time to fight.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy, so kind. He's not trying to be tough. He's not out here, with shenanigans outside of the ring. He's just a regular black man, and I love him, man. I love what he's doing. I love how he's disposing of these fighters. And I think he's going to be around a long time. And he's definitely one of the best welterweights in the division right now. And not only is he a champion, but he's calling everybody out. I mean, he's called out the Thurmans. He's called out, everybody. I spoke to Sean Porter that Saturday, and I asked him, I said, hey, you're looking for a fight. Is the winner of the Spence Porter fight, is that a possibility? Is that something that you would be interested in? And he said that he's not ranked in the IBF. He said the IBF, after he lost the belt, they took him off the rankings. Therefore, Spence isn't really on his radar. I talked to Kenny Porter. He said that the same thing. Basically, Spence is really not on their radar. Now, Spence is. I mean, who was I just talking to? Sean Porter is not going to fight him. Keith Thurman has a soft touch coming up from his injury. He's not going to fight him. I'm just wondering if he's going to get a fight with one of these top guys at the end of the year. Maybe a Danny Garcia will get in the ring with him. But as far as Sean and Keith, Keith said he's going to fight him. He's not scared to fight him, and I believe him. But nobody wants to fight this guy next. I don't know how they're going to – they got a date set, but I don't know who's going to be on the other side of the ring.
All right, we'll come back to that in a minute. I know we're kind of on a shot clock tonight, so I'm gonna keep it moving. I wanted to touch on the Robert Easter Jr. and the Javier Fortuna fight. E-Bunny, Robert Easter Jr., man, is starting to become like a Nas album. It's like I'm a huge Nas fan. Most of the people in my city are kind of lukewarm on Nas, and I always have to explain why a Nas album is good, because it's always a track missing, or he doesn't like to spend a lot of money on his production. He doesn't like songs that are really hits. So I always have to explain a Nas album, and I feel like with the Robert Easter Jr. fight. For the last two fights specifically, I kind of have to convince myself that he won the fight. And this time, I got bored with this fight, man, because I felt like, and I know he tried a few different things, but I think when we get to talking about looking at him as amongst the other world champions or the elites, getting into that pound for pound discussion, when Garcia finished off Zalich Takanen, I knew I was gonna mess the dude's name up. Dejan Zlatikanen. It was that was an emphatic finish, and I'm just saying, like I said, Robert is just. I'm just not seeing the complexity in it, in an offensive attack. Right.
I mean, he's definitely a waste of height. I mean, the guy is like damn near my height and 130. So I mean, he could use his height better. He gets in these ridiculous points in the fights where he engages with smaller guys, and I don't think that's a great look for him. I mean, he won the title from Richard Comey, but it was a close fight, and everybody debated, whether or not I know all the media was saying that it could have gone either way. With that being said, I don't want to take away from Javier Fortuna. Javier Fortuna is a tough fighter. I mean, he's even dirty at some points, but I mean, he throws blows from every direction. So everywhere. I mean, it was a good fight for him. It wasn't a pushover fight. I didn't expect him to go in there and knock the guy out, but I do expect him to use his height more. I would like to see him, put a long stick in there. I wish I could bring Emmanuel Stewart back to show him how to use that long stick, or have him work with Mark Breland down in Alabama with Wilder and them. Show him how to use that long stick, since he's so tall, man. What is he, like 5'11"?
5'11".
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy tall for 130.
It seemed like
I'm 4 inches taller than him, and I'm like 2, and I'm not that fat. But for that guy to be 130 and 5'11", that's crazy, and not use his height. That's not right. That's crazy.
Right. I was looking at a picture earlier in the week that I think might have been on Easter's Instagram account, and it was a picture of him and Errol Spence Jr. from the Olympic team. I believe Easter Jr. was an alternate. And, he made a comment about, well, we both started out, here with world championship dreams, and now here we are, 5 or 6 years later, we've accomplished those dreams and being world champions. But then when I'm sitting up looking at the Errol Spence Jr. fight, I'm looking at how I kind of made it I kind of compared it to like a route tree for a wide receiver. When I look at the punch the combinations of Errol Spence Jr., the variety, changing up, his patterns and whatnot, it's just so much more advanced than where Robert Easter Jr. is. And I felt like he had his best 1, 2, maybe even 3 punch combination, like in the first minute and a half in the fight. And he never came back to that type of combination. And it was just single shots, and then, like you said, once he got in close and kind of smothered his punches and took away his length and put himself in harm's way. Like I said, I just got a little bored with that fight, but I take nothing away from the effort that Fortuna put out there. I thought he was going to be a tough challenge for Robert Easter Jr., but I just felt like he leaves those openings because he's so awkward. He gets squared up often, gets both feet together and whatnot. I thought, like you said, I was hoping that Easter Jr. would have stood back, caught him in some of those situations and made him pay. But I think for the most punishing shots, I felt like Fortuna might have doubled him up in the heavier punches.
I agree. But he got the nod. It's going to be hard for Javier Fortuna to get the nod in a close fight like that, being as though Robert Easter is the more push fighter. And then another thing that holds Javier Fortuna back is the fact that he missed weight. It's hard to beat the champion for his – well, first of all, the belt wasn't even on the line because he missed weight. Right. But it's hard to get in there and get the nod if you're the less fighter being pushed and you don't make weight. It's tough, man. But, like the old saying goes, if you want to get the nod and you don't want to leave it up to the judges, man, you go in there and finish the job. I want to say one more thing about Robert Easter. And let me just make a prediction. If Robert Easter doesn't use that jab and learn how to fight like a bigger man and learn how to fight taller, you know, the jig is up. One of these guys is going to catch him. You know, because he squeaked by Richard Kumi, he squeaked by Javier Fortuna. The jig is up. I don't think he's going to squeak by the next close fight that he fights. I think he needs to make it. I think he just needs to add a couple more folds. I mean, use your height, man. You're 5'11". You don't have to exchange. But that's my guy. I like Robert Easter. I really do. I talked to his father. I know him personally. I remember when Adrian Broner had his fight with Theopain, I was, you know, hanging out with them, interviewing them in the locker room back at Headbangers Gym. So, you know, I like the kid. I just wish that he would use his height a little bit more and stop doing unnecessary engaging.
Right. Great young champion. You know, has still a big ceiling. He still can do some of the things that his big brother mentor has done as far as moving up in other weight classes and whatnot and having big moment fights. But I just think it's going to have to be a change in philosophy. And like you said, you know, there's no sense in having all that height and being so unique. And just so everybody doesn't clown you that might watch this, he's at 135, not 130. Just so nobody come at you. I don't want nobody adding you.
We all make mistakes. I'm human. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't want nobody adding you over nothing.
There's things that I don't know. I don't claim to be a historian. I don't claim to be the most knowledgeable boxing person in the world. I just get in front of these guys. I give them interviews. If I'm wrong, I stand to be corrected.
Right. I just don't want nobody.
No, I want to be corrected. I want to be corrected. You know, let's keep the integrity.
But I know the bulk of the show, man, was to talk about the information that you came into yesterday and, running through these fights, Showtime Boxing and Premier Boxing Champions rolled out the slate of fights taking us through mid-June, it's like.
Right.
So,
and to add to that, I just want y'all to know that Brooklyn Boxing, PBC is putting them shows on, man. And guess what? They're buying the media open bar. They had an open bar yesterday. You know what I mean? So come on, Kathy Duva. Come on, Eddie Hearn. Come on, Bob Arum. Open bar, baby.
So look, you sent me the image and everything. I couldn't read some of it on there, and I didn't have time to play around to expand it.
We could talk about the fight February 17th between Danny Garcia and Brandon Rios. It's a welterweight title eliminator. What do you think about that fight?
Obviously not the matchup. I told you that. I mentioned it.
We talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, I tend to buy into what Danny Garcia said about fighting at the world level, you know, for consecutive fights, taking the punishment, his body needing to rest a little bit. Last year he had a pretty good tussle with Keith Thurman. And he came out unsuccessful on that one. So I'm okay with, with him, with that statement that, I needed to let my body heal up. And now he's coming back against Rios. Not the biggest fight. I mean, not the biggest challenge. I think Rios is a little long in the tooth and is taking a lot of punishment. But I think he went and got back with an old trainer and whatnot. I think for this one, man, I'm going to be more or less looking at the co-feature, which is, I believe, at super middleweight with David Benavidez and Ronald Gabriel, the rematch of that one.
Yeah, the first one was a great fight. Who you got in the rematch?
I got a little cold from them planes, man.
Oh, no. Who you got in the Benavidez rematch?
I think Gabriel might have squandered his opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, I can't really speak on that fight. I mean, I did see the first one, but I'm not really sure. So, if I'm not sure, I'm not gonna comment. But let's get back to the Garcia Rios. I do want to say one thing. You all right over there?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I do want to say one thing. Rios is on his last breath. I mean, literally, he's I think that he's going to be pretty much done if he doesn't win this fight. So I think he's coming with everything. He doesn't have anything to lose. You got to kill him already. Already he's proven that he's not going to quit. He's similar to a Lamont Peterson in the way his mentality is. He's definitely a warrior. I think that I have Garcia, winning that fight by stoppage, but Rios is very dangerous because he don't have anything to lose. I mean, this is basically his final chance at stardom and fighting at this level.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a good test. I mean, a good it should represent a good challenge for it's a good name for Garcia. But I think it's one where he should look impressive, to set up future business. I think if you are going to fight a Rios, like you said, you should treat him like he's long in the tooth and like he is on his last breath, somewhere in the middle of the fight, get rid of him.
So you're saying he needs a knockout?
I would prefer to see that. If he wants to get right back into this being an eliminator, right, I would think that it needs to be an impressive performance.
Right. Now, March 3rd, what do you think about the WBC heavyweight championship between Wilder and Ortiz?
Excuse me. It's funny how we got here. We were supposed to be here last year. I think it's a good matchup for Wilder, man. I think Ortiz is skilled enough. Like, the only thing, we don't know how old this guy is. I think he's saying he's 38. He's looked, the last fight against the big guy from West Virginia really didn't do a whole lot for me. But, to get rid of the guy in a round and a half or so, I thought that was impressive. So I think it's a great opportunity for Wilder to really showcase that he's got more than just that big eraser.
Right. I don't think this fight is going to look as bad as Wilder's last fight with Stavern, but I don't think it's going to be as good as Wilder's first fight with Stavern. I think that Ortiz is going to get in there and give him, a tough 3 or 4 rounds, and I think he's going down. I don't think he has enough to go up against Wilder. I don't think he's been active enough. He's been caught numerous times taking banned substances. We don't know exactly what he was doing, but I don't expect it to go to distance. And I don't think it's a great fight, honestly. No disrespect to the Cuban school of boxing, no disrespect to Ortiz. I know he's a good fighter, but I don't think he's, that good enough competition for Wilder at this point and Wilder's momentum. But hey, Anthony Joshua's not stepping in the ring with him. Wilder said he doesn't want to take out Anthony Joshua's trash and fighting Dylan White. Ortiz did beat Brian Jennings, so that's not an option. Tyson Fury's not in the ballpark. Alexander Povetkin, he tried to go over and fight him. He came up with a banned substance in his system. So Wilder just doesn't have that many options, So, I mean, I guess this is a good option considering the lack of talent, but I don't think it's a good fight. I expect Wilder to get him out of there within the first 5 rounds.
Now, did they mention whether or not this one would be on would actually be aired on Showtime? Do you know if that's the plan for this one?
Wilder Ortiz? All these fights are on Showtime.
Okay.
All these fights are on Showtime.
I just thought yesterday I was listening to Rope-A-Dope Radio with Chris Carlson, and I thought maybe in the last day or so he had mentioned that there was no Showtime logos and whatnot around this fight, and hinted that it was a chance that it could be headed for network television. So
when was that?
Rope-A-Dope Radio with Christopher Carlson.
Okay, shout out to him. When did he do that show?
I think he tweeted something about it Tuesday. Then he did his show last night, but I was in and out on listening to it. He might have.
He may have corrected that because they did such a big. I mean, it's a no-brainer now. That fight is on Showtime.
Okay.
And,
okay.
Charlo and Centennial. Is that his name? I don't really know Centennial. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I've seen him fight, but I don't know enough about him to really give my honest opinion on this fight. I know that Charlo's moving up. I know that he's moving up to 160, and his last opponent at 160, he came in with like some kind of leg injury, so it wasn't a good test at 160. I'm glad that Charlo is in there with a solid middleweight, so we can really, see what he has to offer at 160. But that's pretty much all I know about the fight.
Right. I thought the Centennial kid, from what we mentioned before going on there, was Aleem that I thought he put away with a big left hand and really put Aleem to sleep. So, I mean, I think it's just going to be fireworks. And like you said, just more a chance for Charlo just to get, to get some more fights, get some more time in the ring at 160 and continue to wait around for one of the, maybe the winner of Triple G and Canelo 2. We don't know what's going on with with Saunders and Jacobs out of Brooklyn and whatnot. So I think I think he should look good in it. In the fight
over the show. I mean HBO now.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He didn't make things easier for that type of fight to get made. But he was mentioned as somebody that Jacobs was looking at.
Right. I would love to have an honest answer on why these guys are moving over to Eddie Hearn from PBC. But a lot of things are political, and they don't want the media basically to know those things. But I would love to have that conversation. But let's move down. We're time is flying, so let's move down to April 7th. We have a fight, 154-pound world champion unification between Eris Landidor and Jared Hurd. What do you think about that fight?
I told you last week when I didn't have any idea that it was going to be finalized this soon, but I kind of don't like the style matchup. I'll stand by that. Excuse me. And the size difference in these guys. Did you have a chance to see the face-to-face, the stare down with these guys?
Yeah, I did, but I wasn't paying attention to the side. What did you see that I missed?
I mean, just Hurd is like a good head, almost a full head above, taller than Lara. Which size doesn't always mean something, in boxing. But
I think Hurd's bigger than all those guys, honestly.
Excuse me. Told my wife, asked her to bring me up some water for me. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of this fight. I think Hurd is a guy that's still developing. He looks a little different every time out. Hell of a chin. Just a bruiser, a slugger. It'll come down to can he kind of corner Lara and make him stand there and trade a little bit. And it remains to be seen what Lara shows up that night. Right.
I'm very interested in seeing someone box Hurd because he's pretty much been coming in like the hawk, like taking all these guys' power shots and giving them back and just walking through these guys and stopping them. Lara has enough. I think Laura's just a notch above Austin Trout. And Austin Trout, I mean, that was a close fight until it wasn't. But, we'll see, man. And I commend Jared Hurd for winning the best fights. I mean, no hesitation. He's been giving us great fights, man. He gave us the Trout, the Harrison, and he walked through those guys. No BS with making these fights. So now he's fighting Lara. I can't wait to see it. I hope, that everything goes well. Best luck to both fighters. But the question is, can Hurd withstand Lara's shots and cut off the ring when he boxes and uses his legs, because like I said, he's a notch above Trout, and Trout had a little bit success before he was stopped. And
quite a few years younger than Trout too.
Exactly. So I like the matchup. I think it's a great fight. I think it's even. But hey, it will make a really big statement to the Charlo brothers if Hurd got a knockout.
Now, that one is there's no location assigned to that one just yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't see a location on here.
Right. Which leads us into, and unless you had something else for that one, but it leads us into the 21st of April when when Broner steps back in the ring against Omar Figueroa. And, I throw my question out to you before we went on air. Are you shocked, or do you have any thoughts on seeing Broner in a, in a main event coming off of the, being soundly defeated by Garcia, who was coming up to 140 for that fight? Are you do you have any thoughts on Broner? Like I said, headlining a card.
I don't have any reservations about Broner being a headliner because, it's all about who brings the money and the asses to the seats. He can lose the last 5 fights, but if people are paying to see him fight, he's going to be the headliner. And if he's bringing the most money to the table, he's definitely going to be the A side. So I don't think that's wrong. I know one thing, just like Brandon Rios, I'm going to say it about Broner, and I hate to say this because I love Broner. I love what he brings to boxing. But if he loses this fight, it doesn't look good for his future in the sport of boxing. And it's kind of weird that he does these interviews and he's like, you know what, this is the time, I'm getting my act together and this and that and the other. It's kind of like we keep hearing the same thing, man, and I wish him all the best because, I'm a ghetto black American, just like he's a ghetto black American, and I understand the struggle and I understand his struggle. I understand what he's going through in and outside the ring. But I really hope that he gets really focused and he gets in there and has a good performance over Figueroa, or he's probably not gonna headline if he gets beat by Figueroa. I think the fight is gonna look similar to Broner's fight with what's the Mexican guy from Chicago? He just fought Sean Porter. Who's that? Granados. Yeah. I think this fight is gonna look similar to that because Figueroa is just a come forward semi-brawler. He has a little bit of boxing ability to him, but for the most part, he's a brawler. And he's going to bring it to Broner, and I can't wait to see that fight. I can't wait to see I want Broner to win, and I want him to do better with it, just with everything.
So did they mention what weight class that'll be contested at?
I'm pretty sure it's 140.
Can you say that again?
140.
Oh, 140?
Yeah,
now, that was another one. I thought it was interesting. Okay, so if he is the main event, you were there last week. When they put him on the screen, Brooklyn hadn't forgotten about his post-fight comments after the loss to Garcia. He was booed pretty loudly that night when he popped up on the Jumbotron. And so it's interesting. I'm watching to see where this fight will be held because, like I said, I'm not so sure that he puts butts in seats in Brooklyn.
I mean, that's a good point. That's a good point. At the end of the day, Broner's Broner. A lot of people want to see him fight. I'll tell you one thing. My girl doesn't watch any boxing, but she knows Adrian Broner, and she wants to see him lose. So, no disrespect to him or her, but, people know him. People want to see him lose. People boo him. Floyd said, whether you boo me or whether you cheer for me, you still want to watch the fight. So, I mean, that's his game. That's how he sells himself. He sells himself like that. He's a smart kid. He's very smart. He may not be that smart. He may not make that smart decisions outside of the ring, outside of his investments. I'm just talking about the mistakes that he makes. He may make some mistakes that aren't too smart, but I think he's intelligent at marketing himself and being able to stand out. And that's why he's headlining coming off of I guess three losses in his last 6 fights or so. He's still headlining, and he's still going to sell tickets. I mean, he knows how to market himself, you know, and that's that.
I'm gonna hold off on my thoughts on that fight till we get near it. I want to see who he's working with in camp. Where is he having camp? And like I said, I'm also interested to see what the location is. But I think it is a winnable fight for Broner. I'm like you. I do want to see him do well. You know, he's about 60 minutes away from me down in Cincinnati, so I'm rooting for the Ohio fighter and whatnot. But Figueroa, I do think presents some challenges because of his length, his punching volume, which Broner hasn't always handled well, especially getting up in the higher weights. You know, winning 4 titles in 4 different weight classes. But you know, at 47 and 40, things have been what they have. But you know, Figueroa is another guy that switches in between orthodox and southpaw consistently. Broner's a very well-schooled counterpuncher and whatnot, so I could think or could believe that he could make Figueroa pay for some of those mistakes. I will say I was a little bit impressed with Figueroa's power to get rid of Guerrero in the last fight out, and you know, in 2 or 3 rounds. I really didn't think, and you know, Guerrero was a little. I don't want to say he's warm, but I mean he's been in a lot of wars, but still I didn't even go into that fight expecting a whole lot, and it was a pretty exciting, you know, destructive fight. So the other thing with that date that I think is very impressive, you know, a more good astute card building by the president now, Stephen Espinosa of Showtime Sports and whatnot, is the return of Tank Davis on that card. I think if you are going to put Broner back in the main event right away, because you were there for the Garcia fight, and immediately, you know,
I wasn't there. I was not there for that Garcia fight, the Broner Garcia.
I thought that's when we met.
I've seen about 3 or 4 of Broner's fights live. I've interviewed him a ton of times, but I was not at the Broner Garcia fight.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Ben was at that one, right?
Yeah, Ben was there. Yeah,
Ben was at that one because I remember him talking about all the skill in the ring. But immediately in the post-fight presser, as we were waiting for Garcia to come out, you know, the immediate word around the room was that Broner was just going to be a journeyman, and that he'd have to take some steps to get back to headlining something. So I think it's a bit of a coup for, you know, about Billions to getting back to this spot. I mean, obviously, it's a good relationship with Showtime. And like you said, I think Espinosa, and I talked to Espinosa when he was in Cincinnati, he firmly believes that there's a market out there. There's a strong following for Broner. And like you said, he's a guy that works social media with the best of them. But it'll be interesting to see who Davis is, who Tank.
And again, not for nothing, they got Gervonta Davis on the undercard, so that helps that card. And you know, I'm sure Tank Davis doesn't mind premiering with his brother AB. You know, depending on who they put on the Davis fight, that might be a decent card. So they put a Tevin Farmer on versus Davis. That might be a great matchup. That'll be a great card. Adrian Broner versus Omar Figueroa and Gervonta Davis versus Tevin Farmer. That would be a great card.
Now, the only thing is, another interesting detail there is, you know, on FightHype.com and on the FightHype YouTube channel was a video or 2 with Broner making some harsh and stern comments against his big bro Mayweather. And obviously, with Gervonta being Mayweather Promotions, probably one of their key assets, to bring that whole triangle back together could be interesting in the build-up to the fight.
Right. Well, they're always going back and forth. Mayweather's mad at Broner, not calling Broner. Broner's pissed at Mayweather. You know, I don't get into that. You know, I don't know. I don't know what those guys are going through. You never know the truth. So, you know, I really don't care about the soap opera, you know, that surrounds boxing. I really don't care who gets along with who's big brother is who. I just want all these guys to show that they're the best and be a little bit more like Errol Spence. Just fight everybody and, you know, give us less of the outside trash, you know. So, you know, whoever these guys like, whoever, you know, they're friends with today and tomorrow, that's their business. My business is to come interview you guys after you come out of that ring, and hopefully you guys make the best fights.
We can move on to this next one. You want to, it looks like May 19th is
Keith Thurman's date, but he doesn't have, it's nothing to talk about there, really. I mean, he doesn't have an opponent. He's not fighting Errol Spence. Everyone was speculating that he was going to be fighting his name just
Ocampo. I mean, not Ocampo, Vargas.
Yeah, Jesse Vargas. But we asked Keith Thurman about that. He said nothing's finalized. He said everything that you've heard is a rumor. So, I mean, it was good to see him and it was good to have him out there. But if they don't have a fight for him, I don't understand why, you know, he was part of that press conference. I guess just to tell us his date, which is cool. And I hope it's a good card. We know it's not going to be like any of the top 5. We know that. But, you know, Jesse Vargas is a great fight for Thurman. I don't think it's going to be easy if he does get that fight.
Right. I think the interesting thing about that date is it looks like Showtime is planning a split site card or event that they'll televise with Stevenson Jack happening up in Canada. Out of all of these, man, that might be the one I'm anticipating the most.
Right. Man, I'll tell you what, those guys over at Mayweather Productions, or Mayweather Promotions rather, they're pretty good at making matches, man. I mean, for Badu Jack to move up in his first fight to be a championship match against a guy that, you know, we couldn't get him to fight Ward, we couldn't get him to fight Kovalev, you know, I think, I mean, whatever they're doing at Mayweather Promotions is brilliant. You know, they got Thea Payne, that Adrian Broner fight. I mean, they got this guy to come out of the nowhere and fight Jack. I'm glad that it's made. I really don't know what Stevenson has anymore. He's been so inactive. I don't know what he has. But I do know this. If he still has that power in that left hand, Jack might have something to worry about.
Yeah, that is a very awkward matchup. I mean, Jack does a little bit of everything. And like you said, Stevenson is more of a specialist. But in my opinion, I have seen him do a little bit more, you know, setting up the left hand in different ways. He's getting he might be, he's late 30s now, right?
Who's that, Stevenson?
Stevenson? He's late.
I can check. I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure he's above 37. But anyway, yeah, it'll be interesting how they put that fight together. You know, who they put around Thurman.
Hey, he's 40.
Okay, I wanted to say 40.
I don't know what he's holding out for. I mean, he didn't fight Ward. He didn't fight Kovalev. What are you holding out for, Donis? Were you holding out for this Jack fight? I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. We never seen Jack at 175. So, I mean, how do we know how he's going to look? You know, what do we know about him at 175?
Well, he beat Cleverly.
Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't even watch that fight, so I'm not going to sit here and go into it. But he got a belt. I think, what was it? It might have been a minor belt. But he stopped Cleverly. Cleverly's a name that's been out there forever. I just never really been that interested in him. I know you're running out of time. Did you want to run through these last two fights in June, on June 9th?
Jamel doesn't have an opponent. Errol Spence doesn't have an opponent. So we can talk about Santa Cruz and Mares. What do you think about those fights?
It kind of brings to what I was thinking earlier was and I think in the images that you sent me, I did see Porter's name on there. Maybe on this Spence fight, it was like he was gonna be in the co-main or something. But two names that I was missing from everything that was rolled out that I saw not being on site Porter's name wasn't involved in anything. Of course, he's dealing with the hand injury. And then also Gary Russell Jr. wasn't on there. So I say that I bring up his name because if I can't see Santa Cruz against Gary Russell Jr. at some point, I'm kind of cool on that division, man.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
I mean, this is a fight.
Rematch, though. The first fight was pretty blockbuster. They fought to the end. I'm not mad at the rematch, but yeah, that's not a division that I'm thrilled of watching.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's good to see Jamel on that one, but not having an opponent. Overall, so what's your thought, man, on a scale of 1 to 10? What's your thought on what they've put together so far?
I think it's there's some great matchups on here. The Lauder Hurd, the Wilder Ortiz is pretty good. Charlo, he's not getting the soft touch. We're gonna find out how he's gonna do it at 160. I like the fights. I like the way they presented it. I like their presentation. I like the fact that they're putting so many fights out there before June. But honestly, we won't know until the fights actually happen whether or not they're going to be good. Because some of these fights get hyped up and then they turned out to be duds. So, but this is a good schedule so far, and I hope it goes well. Eddie Hearn also laid out quite a few fights. The Dylan Whites, the Kell Brook. I think he has a matchup for Kell Brook. So, I mean, the as of June, the boxing looks like it's going to be lit, man. I'm very excited to see these fights.
Agreed. I think, I was thinking, this will be the first full year, with no, with really no reason to really be talking about, or folks to be talking about a return from Floyd Mayweather. So I think in looking at this list, this might be the new normal right now, man, until, somebody emerges as a legitimate pay-per-view.
Yeah, standout.
Yeah, so I think they've done pretty well with what they've assembled. I think, it sets up some good fights to be made in, the second half of the year. Another one that we kind of ran over, we didn't really mention the Garcia-Lipinets fight on March 10th, but that Barthélemy Relic rematch should be pretty interesting. And another one, another intriguing matchup I believe is going to be on that Wilder-Ortiz card is the Darrell Uzcategui rematch, with the controversial ending in D.C. last year. So I'm ready to rock, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, let's get it, man. I guess that's it for now as far as like all these fights. We mentioned every fight. I guess we can come back and talk after the Wilder Ortiz fight, or if there's news that breaks or something that happens sooner, we could talk about that. But I think the next major event is going to be the Wilder Ortiz. I'm actually going to be in Philly. I'm going to the Hank Lundy versus Chop Chop Corley fight. That I'm always going to come out and support Philly fighters no matter what. So I'll be at that fight. But otherwise, man, I guess this is it until March 3rd. You're not coming through.
Sorry about that. I was muting while I was coughing. And I'm going to get ready to get off of here. But I just wanted to get your thoughts. If you saw anything on Ward moving around in social media, kind of hitting that a return at cruiserweight or something, do you think chances are we see him at some point this year?
Well, yeah, FightHype. I can't give y'all too much, but FightHype is on the premises with Ward. We should be releasing some videos. Ward and Ben are really good friends. Anything that Ward is going to say or going to release, 9 times out of 10, he's going to do it through Ben. So you guys stay tuned to FightHype.com Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram, excuse me, at Rahman Hijazi. And that's spelled RAHMAN HIJAZI. I can't hear you again, bro.
This damn mute button.
It's all good.
Nah, I just wanted to say thanks for your time tonight, man. We jumped on.
Thanks for having me. Anytime. Anytime.
No problem. Like I said, I'm about a month out from getting into the new spot, working around with improving some things. I know right now we're keeping it very simple with the live stream and whatnot. But
I want to tour the man cave.
We'll do all of that. All right.
Right on. All right, man. All right. Take care, man. Take care of that cough.
We'll do. All right. Take care, man.
All right.